So Mark Twain has one of the most interesting premonition stories I've ever read, and the way that it goes is he was laying there asleep one night whenever he had a really intense dream of his brother laying in a metal casket with white flowers on top of it and a singular rose. This freaked him out so bad and it was so vivid that he popped up and he ran outside to kind of collect himself, and he was preparing himself to walk back inside and look at the casket whenever he realized, oh, this was just a dream, my brother's still alive. So he goes inside, his sister and his niece are sitting there still awake, and he tells them, he's like, yeah, I just had this crazy story where I seen our brother laying there in this metal casket with the white flowers. They're like, well, it was just a dream, so it's nothing to worry about. So Mark kind of brushes it off, but didn't really brush it off. This really bothered him at the time, and everybody could tell that he was really upset about it. Well, a few days later, he received a letter that his brother was working on a steamboat and the boiler exploded. Well, he went to the hospital to see him, and he wasn't dead. He was actually going to recover it. The problem was he was in a ton of pain, so they decided to give him pain medicine. And this is what really took him out. They were very short staffed, so they had to get physicians straight out of medical school to come in there and start helping out. However, they weren't very good at measuring medicine, and they ended up giving him way too much morphine, which ended up taking him out. Now, at this point, he was extremely tore up. He thought his brother was going to make it, and then ended up the physicians are the ones that killed him. So he ends up leaving the hospital, and he stayed with some random citizen overnight to kind of collect himself and get everything in order. Well, he goes back to the hospital the next day, and they have a room dedicated for all the bodies, and they had a lot of white oak caskets sitting in there. However, he noticed that there was a metal casket there. Come to find out, the nurses felt really bad for him for all the pain he was going through and how much he was actually fighting to stay alive whenever the hospital ended his life. So they all took up a collection for him and bought him a metal casket. Well, this is really odd because he's the one casket that is metal out of the whole thing, and it's starting to come into play about his dream. Now, this is where things start getting really weird. In Mark's dream, he also envisioned his brother laying there in Mark's old suit. Well, Mark worked on the steamboats with his brother at one point in time, and whenever he left, he didn't take suit. So they took his old suit and put it on his brother. And at this point, he's a little weirded out, but there's no flowers on the casket. Well, lo and behold, here comes a nurse with a bouquet of mostly white flowers with one red rose in the middle of it, and she sets it on the casket. And it matches almost exactly what his dream was. However, there's one more weird event. While he was out on his walk, he was thinking about going back inside and seeing his brother's casket, which was placed between two chairs. Now, this is whenever he realized it was just a dream, but whenever they delivered the body back to his parents' house, he walks inside the room and the casket is sitting on two chairs just like he envisioned in his dream. Now, to me, that's a very interesting premonition, not only because he got all the details right, but because he also had witnesses to the story. I don't know, I just thought it was really wild, and with all the crazy shit going on in the world today, I figured you all want to hear something else besides that. So there is something pretty cool about Mark Twain that you may not have known. Anyways, if you enjoy that, please be sure to give a like and a follow or whatever you'd like to do. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Okay, bye.